A 90s classic, DNA2 caught my attention with its unique character designs and nostalgic 90s aesthetics. As a fan of older anime, especially 90s anime, I instantly just knew I had to watch this series. But you may know this series for something else. Its terrible English dub.
Ryuji!
That's right, so today on Anime Friday, we're reviewing the 90s time-traveling romance classic DNA2. There will be spoilers for the series, but make sure to get subscribed, ring the bell, and if you want, become a channel member. DNA2 to me is the quintessential 90s convoluted romance we have all come to adore from the era. The story follows Junta, Ami, and the hyper-futuristic Karen. In the future, Junta impregnated 100 women. His 100 children do terrible things in the future, so Karen is tasked to go back in time and stop him. She is sent special ammunition called a DCM around. With this, she can stop the Mega Playboy's DNA from spreading through Junta's body. But for some reason, she uses the bullet that turns him into the Mega Playboy faster. And so begins the romantic triangle that will lead you on hijinks and probably some of the most questionable acting and dubbing. Let's review DNA2. The studio behind this 90s gem is none other than Madhouse and Studio Dean, two esteemed studios in their own right with plenty of anime under their belt, both good and bad. It also comes from one of my favorite artists and mangaka, Masakatsu Katsura. He's done things like Video Girl Eye and the character designs for Tiger and Bunny. The series is just 12 episodes, but did see an OVA release of 3 episodes to finish out the story. And also keep in mind, this was at a time when OVAs didn't mean just extra beach episodes, so watch these if you watch the main series. It completes the story. You can find DNA2 on Amazon Prime and as well Crunchyroll, or you can probably buy it on Right Stuff pretty cheap as well. So with stories like these, I like to take a step back and enjoy it for what it is. This story is a romance through and through, though I am often befuddled at some of the logic in this series. A lot of it doesn't make sense. To start off, why send a cute blue-haired girl back in time to deal with a Mega Playboy? If he's this guy who's so good at dealing with women, wouldn't you want a guy to do it? Or at least someone you know who wouldn't be at any risk? But that's not all. Why the hell did they send her back with the bullet that causes him to turn into the Mega Playboy? They explain in the series that the only difference between these two bullets is that they have red lines. If this guy was so bad, then why make your way to identify ammunition that convoluted and easily confusing? And there are plenty more plot holes to discuss. So throughout the whole series, Junta tells Karen that he loves her so much. He buys a pretty necklace for her, which is forced on Ami, so it's never given to Karen. In the whole series, they both reciprocate those feelings towards one another, but Junta obviously just really doesn't care about Ami in the same way. So at the end, it's revealed Karen has to go back to her own timeline. She doesn't though, and she wants to stay, but for no reason given really, she just goes back. Now this ending got me kind of mad. When I watch romance anime, I want the actions these characters take in their relationship to make logical sense. I don't care how crazy the story is. To be fair, I didn't exactly watch this for romance either, but consistency is key to a good romance. But this anime has an ending that makes no goddamn sense. Why the hell would she not stay? Junta does not love Ami. He just doesn't. The writing has told the viewers throughout the whole series that Junta loves Karen and doesn't really notice Ami. So when you condition your viewers to expect that ending with Karen and you don't give it to them, they feel like you just wrote a bad ending, which kind of, for the most part, they sort of did. It's just mind-boggling why they did it this way at all. It made no sense. But I do have to admit that a lot of this show was strangely entertaining and very well done, especially for the time period. I thought the comedy in this was fairly entertaining and solid for what it was and the time period it was in. There are moments where you can tell the comedy is really outdated, but this anime is such a time capsule that it comes off more charming than not. This feels like an anime that back when it came out and was new was kind of on the cutting edge of what the people wanted to see. Like how now we have a billion isekai, back then this was their popcorn anime, so to speak. And while I do have many complaints about the story, I still really enjoyed it. As for the characters, in this anime, they're memorable to me. I loved Karen a lot and thought she was the real star of this anime, and it makes sense. She's the cover of this anime, the 90s anime girl most everyone will get a look at and immediately like. And while a lot of these characters are failed by bad logic and outdated tropes, Karen especially just outpaces that on a few occasions. Junta, on the other hand, well, not so much. He's your basic 90s romance MC guy. A short, nerdy, and tad on the annoying side guy. But as well, he has that heart of gold that all of those characters have. His character really is just a basic subversion of expectations, though. A nerdy kid that you would never believe to be the mega playboy, but turns out to be the mega playboy. Amai is okay. She's whatever, and that's because she's the MC's friend who loses to the obviously cooler girl and Karen. Tomoko as well is just bleh. She's fine, but nothing special either. These weaker characters are just there to try and enhance the drama here and there and add some dynamic. Overall, I think the characters are solid enough, definitely good for the time, but by today's standards, it will take some time to get used to. As a fan of Katsuda's general style and design philosophy, I enjoy pretty much all the character designs besides Junta. Junta in particular looks like every other 90s MC. Baggy clothes, generally short, spiky hair, we've went over it pretty much already. It's not an aesthetic which has aged well with anime outside of, say, Dragon Ball Z, at least with the hair. The girls, though, generally look really good, even by today's standards, and I think that has to do with Katsuda's designs and how well his art ages when the art is produced solidly. This is no Akane Sasu shoujo here, and that came out like a couple years ago. To me, his art perfectly captures that 90s romance aesthetic, and it's exactly why this guy still gets jobs to this day to design anime characters like all the time. He's proven. And a good example of good art is immediately noticeable with Karen. Her design is so bizarre in her outfit, much like Video Girl Ai, but it only enhances the overall feel of this anime. I mean, it's obvious that anyone 30 years on from this anime, well, we don't wear clothes like that, though I do think capes are really cool and we should adopt wearing capes. They look cool. The reason it works for Karen is pretty much because of the novelty and the fact that it's still damn pretty cool to me. As well, she's adorable. Her hair is good. She's got that vibrant blue hair and she's cute. It's a 90s anime girl, come on. Ami and Tomoko, they look good too. They look more in line with what Katsuda was always good at producing, regular looking anime girls from the 90s. Changing gear though, the backgrounds do seem under budgeted or at least pretty dated. While I don't mind the washout look that was so popular in that period of time, I think to many it will be a little bit of an issue or at least something jarring for the first couple of episodes, which I think is gonna be a common thing for people. I think you're gonna have to, for most things, get through a couple episodes to really start appreciating this anime. So the animation is what you expect it to be, the classic fan favorite 90s style that will never not be appealing to the eyes. While the anime, like most anime from the 90s, has a low budget, it for the most part puts out very solid animation. Now, you won't be seeing anything like DBZ or Ghost in the Shell here, I think that's obvious, but it is in line with other anime like it from that time period, which I think really puts this anime into a very safe category. There weren't many, if any, scenes I felt like I was getting something that looked bad for the time period. Of course, dealing with older anime, the truth of the matter is that a lot of these kinds of anime just won't look as good as what we have today. But I do think the animation is fine here. It's not really a show known for its animation, as it's really just known for its English dub, let's be honest. Speaking of, so with the voice acting, it's important you deliver on the tone and translation. But at the same time, we have to be aware. Times were different for dubs in the 90s, and we should realize that and review it with as much fairness as possible. This anime's dub is bad. Yes, while at the time this dub would be considered very solid, it doesn't fare so well today. It is poorly translated. It's obvious without even knowing Japanese that it's poorly translated. I mean, just listen to some of these scenes in comparison to the sub.
What's wrong? Answer me! Don't be mad at me. Because the person I'm angry with is Mominari, not you.
Oh, but he's really strong. Understand?
What?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the show. Tomoko is basically voiced by someone who is a worse voice actor, I guess actress, than me, which is hard to believe, but I swear to you it's true on some level. I'm technically acting a script right now. But the voice actress for Karen seems to be the only person on the team besides the voice actor for Ryuji who is directed properly, and thus making her and his performance at least better than others in the show. I mean, granted, it's not the best, but Jessica Calvello is a veteran now, along with Ryuji's actor, and it's obvious even then they had the it factor for voice acting. And in all fairness, some of these people have gone on to prove they can hang. Jessica Calvello was recently in the newest dub for Arya, but sadly, it's just not good. Overall, the tone is sloppy at best, and it's hard to get invested in the scenes too when you hear some of the things you hear in this dub. Though I am going to give it credit here, these men and women probably worked as hard as they could with the time they were given. But it's dubs like these that make people irrationally hate on dubs to this day. This is sadly what dubs used to sound like until Cowboy Bebop came around and then they got really better. In closing, DNA Squared is a fun romance. Go into this anime expecting nothing but a 90s sci-fi inspired romance. With these expectations, you can easily view all of the 15 episodes with ease. The only times I hated something, like outright, was probably episode 14. And yes, I know, I'm very critical of this anime, but trust me, I love it. I feel that episode is so clunky and forced and you just want to get to the ending faster by then. It's also a good anime for a few, funny moments, so watch out for those. Go into it expecting 90s nostalgia, but that also comes with it that it's kind of aged over the decades. This anime it's, in some aspects, it retains a lot, and some others it doesn't, but, for the most part, it has that feel, that 90s anime have. There are plenty of plot holes too, which does take into question the logic and why it was written in such a way. Not to mention, they're fairly easy to correct by putting a small amount of thought into it. But the animation is at least decent overall. You won't be seeing anything top-notch, but it will be nice to look at from a strictly art style perspective. Plus the music as well, it's a good nostalgic 90s score. So for me, this anime gets a recommendation. Absolutely. It ain't perfect, but I love it a lot. I really love this anime. I think it's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite 90s anime, if you can believe it. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning into this episode of Anime Friday. Make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, like the video, comment down below what are your thoughts on DNA Squared. Know that I have merch, I have t-shirts you can buy on Teespring, and as well I have a Patreon where on Patreon you get access to everything a whole month early and a bunch of exclusive stuff. As well, you get the same thing with channel memberships, now starting at 99 cents. Thanks guys for watching the video, I appreciate it. I'll see you later.